Welcome back, everybody. My name is John Sullivan, and you've tuned in to Sportsbook Confidential. This little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. Happy 4th of July weekend. We've got a hot and probably brief show for you today. It is steaming in here, and I'm going to try to get through everything quickly as possible. But I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about some sports betting things today. We're going to do book review. I bought a big stack of books over the winter, and I've been going through them one by one. And this week we have the American Mensa Guide to Casino Gambling, and I'm going to review the sports betting section for you, see if that's worth your time. And, of course, we've got Week 5 in Aussie Rules. We're still waiting on baseball, NHL, and NBA to start up at the end of the month. So, and, of course, football in the fall. So we have Aussie Rules football going right now, and we also have NASCAR at the Brickyard on Sunday. So we'll talk about those. But before we do any of that, let's do what we always start off the show with by updating my bankroll. And I had about as perfect a week as I could have, given the bets that I made. We had two bets in Aussie Rules last week. We had Port Adelaide minus 7.5, and that was an easy winner. They won by 48, and that was plus $15 to the bankroll. And we had the St. Kilda Saints plus 17.5, and they won outright, and they won handily by 20-something against the Richmond Tigers. So that was a winner at plus $14 to the bankroll. And then we had two bets in the NASCAR race. We had Denny Hamlin, who won, finished first at plus 750. So we bet a half a unit. So that's a plus $60 to the bankroll. And we had the other half unit on Eric Jones, who actually finished third. Kevin Harvick finished second. So we did a real good job of predicting which team would have the best results in that race. So if you do the math, I believe that is a profit of $81 for the week, and that brings our bankroll up to $563, 3 straight weeks in a positive direction. And dividing by 30, as we always do, because we want to remain selective sports bettors going forward, our bet size this week will be $19. So another good week. Hopefully we can keep them going. I have to say, when there's not a lot of sports going on, you have a lot of time to mull over your options, and that could be a good thing for you. So let us move right into the American Mensa Guide to Casino Gambling, and I've got a copy of the book right here. I paid the princely sum of $3 for this book on an online wholesaler website, and this is a hardcover, and it was published in 1999. It's part of a Mensa gaming series. I guess they do it for like chess and card games and stuff like that. I checked to see if there was a sports betting section, and there is. And as always, when I do general gambling books, that I do not cover the other parts of the book, because this podcast is dedicated to sports betting and fantasy sports. So you can see it says covers most casino games, including sports betting and horse racing. Now, I have to, do this caveat that, the casinos have changed the rules on a lot of games over the last 20 years. This book's about 20 years old, how they shuffle for blackjack and things like that. So I have no idea how helpful any of that section of the book would be for you. So I just have to put that out there. We're here to talk about sports betting only. And the sports betting section is about 15 or so pages. And the best way I could sum it up is to say it's an excellent primer for a beginning bettor. If you want to get into sports betting and you don't know much about it, and this would be a good book to pick up or borrow a copy from the library or whatever to get the basics. You can have some things written here. Learning how to bet at a window. It teaches you how, if you're at a sports book, how to approach the window and place a sports bet. The types of sports wagers, the point spread, the money line, exotic wagers, parlays, teasers, and prop bets. calculating house edge, and that might be a little advanced for people that are not very math oriented, but you can see that if you calculate house edge on a point spread bet, the house is going to have about 4.5% edge on the point spread bet. But if you do a parlay, they're going to have a much higher edge. It's going to be, 23%, depending on how many legs you have in your parlay. And it talks quite a bit. It doesn't describe it this way, but it talks a lot about the psychological aspects of betting. Like, you have to realize that even the best sports bettors are going to lose, and lose significantly for periods of time. And my show is no stranger to that. We have been up and down over the last 2 years. Of course, I'm not using aggressive bankroll growth here. We're basically flat betting and bet scaling here, but I'm not using any Kelly strategies or anything like that. But there's a mindset behind sports betting, and losing can wear at you. And it talks about having the right mindset. Don't bet just to have action on a game. Don't pay for picks. All these basic things. The two things that doesn't really talk about that I think are very important, even for the basics of sports betting, is line movement, and the other one's escaping me at the moment. Building a model. I feel like you can build a model qualitatively. Obviously, it's not going to be as accurate as a quantitative model. We've talked about handicapping and building a checklist. In a football game, which team has the better quarterback, which team has the better kicker, which team has the better running game, which team has the better passing game, which team has better turnover ratio. That's just building a checklist. You don't necessarily need to be math oriented to do something like that, but you have to compare the relative strength of each team, and whether you do it through just cursory data, or you do it through building a model and projecting results through advanced quantitative analysis or data science. That's something that a sports bettor really has to do. If you're, and then of course the line movement. It doesn't talk about opening line versus closing line. They talk about line shopping, comparing different books, which is important if you're a serious sports bettor. If you're a casual recreational bettor and you're just going to the local casino, you're not going to be line shopping. But you need to realize that the line for a football game may open on Sunday night for the next Sunday afternoon's game, and the line moves all week long, one way or the other, sometimes back and forth, depending on injury news, whatnot, weather conditions, etc. And there can be a distinct advantage for betting at certain times, and that's not really mentioned in here. So overall, I have to give this book kind of like this. It has a good basic information. If you were a total newbie and you wanted to learn some things, there are definitely better books out there. But it would definitely make you smarter walking into a sports book for the first time if you had no other information to go with. And I have this quote. It's from the very last line of the sports betting section, and I found it to be very amusing and true. Sports betting can be a fun recreation, a tough business, or a lousy addiction. And I agree with all of those. I consider it to be a fun recreation. I don't derive my living from sports betting. It's something I do on the side. It can be a tough business. If you have to grind your living out of sports betting, boy, how tough is that? Because, all the land-based casino sports betting is pretty much shut here in New York. I don't know in other states in New Jersey or Las Vegas if you're allowed to even play sports bets right now. So you have to deal with offshore online sports books, and you never know if your money's safe or you're going to get paid. And lousy addiction. If you, we at the end of our show, we have helplines for people that may have problems with gambling. And I certainly do not condone people betting beyond their means. And I specifically bet low amounts on the show because we are not trying to impress anybody here. We're trying to have fun and make small, sensible wagers and have, just have a good time with it and not have it something that, we can look forward to on the weekends if we're watching football or whatever sports we like to watch, hockey for me. But it can be all three of those things, so you have to be careful. But we like to think of it as fun recreation, and we do take it seriously with a profit motive. But it can overtake your life if you have bad impulse control. So a good primer. That's about all I can give it. I'm sure we're going to find some better books as we move out down the list of my reading list. But a nice light read if you're on a short flight, or you'd probably finish it way before you got to Vegas. All right, let's move on to the weekend in sports, and we're going to start with Aussie Rules Week 5. There was already a game Thursday morning, and St. Kilda won again. Boy, they can pass the ball. They get the defense to chase them, and they change field so well. And then all of a sudden they have a one-on-one near the goal, and they set up for so many easy kicks. So what do we got this week? We got Sydney Swans at the West Coast Eagles. The Swans continue to get disrespected by the bookmakers. West Coast has struggled a little bit this year. I like Sydney here with the points. These teams are rate out very evenly statistically. So, I'm sure they will disappoint me at some point, but I like Sydney to cover there. Gold Coast Suns at Geelong. Gold Coast has had an upset win this year. They're better than they were last year. 23.5 is a lot, but what happens in Aussie Rules, if somebody gets down by 30, unless the game is super important to the standings, sometimes the teams give up. I don't know. I just want to stay away from that. The 16-minute quarters really make me worry about the big spreads. So I'm going to stay away from that game. Port Adelaide at Brisbane. This is the game, the two undefeated teams, the game of the week. And I always said Port Adelaide is the best team in the league until they proved me wrong. Brisbane, I said was going to be good this year, and they haven't proved me wrong either. But there is no incentive to take Brisbane here. They are the underdog in this game. They were actually opened at -1, and now they're +1. That's really a pick'em game in Aussie Rules. Teams win by 40, 50 points. It's very rare that there's a draw. So if I had to pick a side, I would pick Port Adelaide here. But there's not good enough odds to take either team here. And then North Melbourne at Western. Western and North Melbourne are both teams that have been inconsistent. North Melbourne started out 2-0, and I think they're 2-2 now. They should bounce back at some point. I feel like they're going to compete for a playoff spot. Western has just been up and down, and I would be inclined to take the points here. If it was 10, I would probably be on this game, but at 6, I'm going to pass. And we got 3 more games in Aussie Rules this week. So we have the Fremantle Dockers at the Adelaide Crows, +10. Adelaide has been awful this year. Fremantle looks better than they have been in past years. But I feel like Adelaide eventually is going to win a game, and this is a game that I think they could win at home, getting 10 points. I like Adelaide here, but you're putting money on a bad team. So it's one of those things, you say, at what points would I take this team and what points would I take that team? I think I need 15 to 20 points to take Adelaide here, so I'm going to pass on this game. But I would not be surprised if they won it outright because they have to improve over time, and this is a team they can beat. Hawthorn Hawks at the Great Western Sydney Giants. Giants have been very good in the past 2 seasons. Hawthorn was very disappointing last week, but I think they're going to bounce back. I like Hawthorn plus the points here. I think Hawthorn is a top 4, and although they have not played consistently like a top 4. I think they're going to be very competitive here. And I like the Hawks plus 7.5. And then Richmond Tigers at the Melbourne Demons. Both Richmond and Melbourne play in Melbourne, so it's not really an away game for Richmond. It's plus 10.5 for the Demons. These teams are very evenly matched statistically. And Richmond, of course, has won 2 out of the last 3 titles. So they're going to be a heavy favorite every week, and they've just been awful this year. And once again, I feel like Melbourne is the play here, plus 10.5. But again, it's putting your money on a bad team. So I'm not feeling that particular wager. But if I had to choose a side, I would choose Melbourne. But Richmond, is going to have a win at some point. They can't be, that bad. But injuries and bad kicking always plays a factor in those games. So we'll see what ends up on my picks for this week. So before we get to that, let us take a look at NASCAR at the Brickyard. Not the Indy 500. It used to be called the Brickyard 400. Now they call it some big machine hand sanitizer 400 or something like that. I don't know. There's only one race each year at Indy, and there's not a lot of data to go off of. If you go through the last 4 seasons at the Brickyard, there's only 4 races of data. And Penske owns the track literally. And what I mean by that is Roger Penske actually bought the Indianapolis racetrack from the George family last year. He owns the racetrack and the Indy 500 now. But he also owns a NASCAR team with 3 cars, and they have performed the best at the Brickyard over the last 4 years of all the teams. Stuart Haas has done pretty well as well. So let's take a quick look at, if my cursor wants to work, let's take a quick look at the odds. And you can see Kyle Busch. Let's see if we can move it up a little bit here. There we go. Kevin Harvick, the favorite. Denny Hamlin, who's been awesome for me this year with 3 wins already. Kyle Busch, Keselowski. Keselowski, Logano, and Blaney are the 3 Penske cars. So I like Logano this week. He has a good track record at Indianapolis. And I also like William Byron, who has performed well in his short experience at Indy. And there's one driver on here. I don't know if I can get him. There it is. Ryan Newman near the bottom of the screen. 125 to 1 and a top 10 plus 260. He has averaged average finish of 7th place. So as a top 10 at plus 260, that's a pretty juicy bet right there. Something to consider if you're going to make a wager this weekend. So let's finish it up and take a look at my picks today. We got a short show, I guess. I am going to go tonight with the Sydney Swans plus 9, minus 111. I feel like they can win this game. I'm taking the points. They've done me right every week, and they've just played consistent. And, they're not going to win every game. I know that. But and I'm counting on the Hawthorne Hawks to bounce back at plus 7.5, minus 111. And in the NASCAR race on Sunday, I'm going to take Joey Logano plus 750. And I'm going to take William Byron at 25 to 1, half a unit each. And that's going to be it for this week. So thanks for tuning in to our special Scorching Summer edition of Sportsbook Confidential. I'll be back, hopefully, with some air conditioning next week, and we'll do another episode for you. And we'll have more topics to talk about. We're getting closer and closer to the return of the playoffs in NBA and NHL, and baseball will be back soon. And I've been thinking about the Bills and the Packers and the NFL, those futures bets. I might have to place one. We'll see how that all pans out in the future. So have a good weekend. Enjoy your holiday, and we'll see you next week. I'll play the outro music for you. Take care, everybody.